Welcome, everyone, to the first Win by Noon Friday Mastermind. I am super excited to have you all here. I'm Todd Bookspan, the founder of Win by Noon. And I think you all know this because you've all been around before, but Dave Savage and I started the Friday Mastermind as the Mortgage Coach Productivity Mastermind about a decade ago. It's kind of crazy. And then we were really fortunate enough about halfway through-ish to add Deborah Bird along the way. So we've got multiple brands represented. We've got Trust Engine and Mortgage Coach. We've got Plug and Play SM. We've got Win by Noon, Modern Mortgage Summit, First Home IQ. We got lots of things that we will be continuing to talk about as we go. But on this first Friday, not only it is the first Friday as that, it is the first Friday where I woke up as a grandfather. So super excited to be here for so many reasons and looking forward to talking to all of you for the next hour and then heading to the hospital at some point when I get the space in the visitor room with my daughter. But we are super excited today. We are talking about Master Strategies, 5 winning plays for loan officers. We've got Matt Adler here. But before I bring Matt in, Dave Savage, I feel funny that I'm actually the leader today's call, but how are you, sir?
Well, get used to it, man. This is going forward. I'm just really pumped on this focus on how to win by noon and having a consistent theme around this. Of course, everyone be sure to wish Todd congratulations as a grandpa. That's obviously a huge milestone. And then I'm excited about today's guest. And Deborah Bird, I hand it off to you. First of all, nice job on the OG Mortgage Coach
Let's
shirt. And
go.
want to remind everybody that you can still buy the OG Mortgage Coach shirt on the Win by Noon store. I will put a link to it. Also, we are doing a little bit of a brand refresh, so there will be a new version of those shirts coming out. We'll try to get those on the store as well. D Bird, what you
ABC,
got?
always be closing.
Always.
Well, congrats, Todd. And for those who may be wondering, mom is healthy, baby is healthy. So I was up late last night texting Todd just, when it's your first grandchild or child, you never know. And in case anyone was worried, mom and baby are all good. And I'm excited to have Matt on. It is Masters Week. So if you guys have the Masters up while you're either listening to this or watching this, you know, I know in this industry, it's like those two things are always up at all times when it's Masters Week. And big congrats to Michigan. For those of you, I did get first place in my NCAA bracket. Not that I had Michigan winning. I had Duke actually, but I believe, Matt, is that where you still are or that's your home base?
That's both. That's where I still am. It's my
Oh,
home base. Go blue.
there we
Yeah,
go.
that's rough. That's rough. My Wildcats lost, but they were outclassed by a pretty amazing team. Yes, Deborah was bugging me at the hospital last night. It was past midnight her time, so I appreciate your friendship and you looking out for us. And don't know the name yet. I know that's the number one question I'm getting, so we'll be excited to hear that at some point today. I know they had a couple names they had narrowed it down to, and they were just waiting to see what they felt what was the right name to fit him. You know, you young folks, you are different than we did in the old days, although we didn't tell anyone the name beforehand either. But yeah, Dave, I like what you said, right? The genesis of this group was the Productivity Mastermind group, right? So we started this off of the heels of your partnership with Darren Hardy on Insane Productivity for Mortgage Coach. And that's really going to be the theme. It's going to be the same thing. We're going to interview amazing people like Matt. We're going to interview amazing coaches, thought leaders, authors, the same thing we've always done, but just with a little bit of focus on taking action, right? One of the things that I think I've witnessed, and I don't want to, I'm not making eye contact with any of you, but oftentimes we have people who sit here for an hour and watch this live or watch the recording later and soak it all in and say that was amazing, but actually then don't do the things. And so that's really going to be part of the theme is how do we then take action? But here we are. So last thing I want to mention is if you haven't bought a ticket for the Modern Mortgage Summit next week, it's just modernmortgagesummit.com. We have 16 speakers, 10-minute TED Talk style. Dave and I have a co-host this year, Jeremy, who we brought on board to co-host on the chance that the baby was born next week and I wasn't going to be there. So you'll have all three of us. And I think it's going to be an amazing event. We're going to be filming from the Press Club in DC. If any of you are local, let us know. We still do have a handful of tickets for people who want to show up live. Just ping us. We'd love to get you set up to get in there. But it's really a unique event. It's the 7th time we've done it, 10 minutes, super fast and very tactical, right? It's really easy to talk about what you do for an hour. It's really hard to cram that hour into 10 minutes and make it amazing. So one of our speakers is our guest today, Matt Adler from Mr. Michigan. Super excited to have you here now. Matt is doing okay. He did 48 loans last month. Is that correct?
Yep, that's right.
48 loans, on track for 48 this month. So my guess is that our 5 winning plays for loan officers, even though he's not a golfer on Masters weekend. So welcome, Matt. What else should we be saying about you that I didn't say in this fabulous intro that I dragged on?
Oh gosh, that we're in the thick of things for college selections for my middle son. So there's that. I'm just really excited about advocacy next week and the summit. It's going to be a killer week.
So
yeah, absolutely.
So I got a few things to add for Matt. So guys, he is the number one, loan officer in the state of Michigan. He's incredibly successful. He's a grandmaster mortgage coach. So, I mean, he's making sure every consumer gets advice. He's a first home IQ ambassador and has really been helpful at bringing first home IQ into his lender. Thank you for that, Matt. And now he is a first home IQ advocate who is actually building his personal brand around making a difference around affordability and being a financial literacy advocate in his market. So, dude, I am really looking forward to hearing, how you're winning in this market right now.
Thank you very much. Yeah. I thought today, because the theme being winning plays, I thought we would come up with some winning plays that I definitely use and maybe tie some like 30-day action items to each one, so that people who are listening, they can maybe pick or choose whichever one they resonate with most. And it can be their game plan for the next 30 days or starting in May or something. And then maybe they can report back and let us know if it made a difference in their career. Because it definitely, all these things are things that I practice and I preach, and they all are difference makers. And I tried to theme them a little bit to sports in a way, not that I'm a golfer, but in a way that was the slant I'm taking here.
I'm not a golfer either. In fact, I tried to play at Top Golf and I kept hitting the rubber thing. So any other sport I got down, but it doesn't have to be tied to golf. But I think to also mention, when you and I were going back and forth talking about possible titles, what was the question that you were asking yourself that kind of led you to want to talk about these 5 winning plays? Do you remember that?
I do. It was, well, what would I do if I was starting over? And this seems to be a question that all of a sudden in my life I've been asked in different venues and professionally and just casually. It's like, if you're starting from zero, how would you become successful? What would be the steps you would take to get there? So that was also the impetus in putting this together as well.
Yeah, I love that. I do think that one of the mistakes that loan officers make, especially those of us who've been in it for as long as some of us with gray hair have been in it, is that we don't ever relish rookie mode. We don't really look back and say, okay, what do I need to rebuild this year in order to be excellent? And so I'm looking forward to hearing your 5 winning plays. My middle daughter, Emmy, wanted to be a golfer, and, I was terrible. My kids would hit it over the water and I'd be the one who hit it in the water. So, no, we're not talking golf today, but let's jump off with play number 1.
Okay. Play number 1, build your business blueprint. So you think about any sort of sports, before you do anything, you're going to have some sort of vision. If it's golf, I imagine a golfer is going to envision hitting the ball across the fairway. I'm a musician. I'm not really, in sports, but in music, I'm a brass player. I play the tuba, and it's actually easier to hit a note if you can hear it and envision it than just kind of playing it. Because playing a tuba is not like a piano. You're hitting a button and a note comes out. Some of it is muscle and some of it is envisioning and hearing it. So in business, especially what we're doing, have a blueprint. That blueprint is going to be everything from, what is your production going to look like? It's going to be, how do you want to operate? It's going to be, who do you want to work with? What are your core values? Define who your clients are and define who your referral partners are, and build that out and build everything you do and start every day with that in mind, so that you can build a business that's not only successful, but also one that you enjoy.
Yeah, I love that. I love the idea of that. Dave, you remember back when we were doing the Insane Productivity, we talked about avatars, right? We built our avatars out for all the different, folks. What's our ideal client look like? What does our ideal partner look like? And then I think you're right. You have to have that vision for, what do I want to look like as a loan officer? And that's where, Deborah helps us all out by how we show up out there in the marketplace too.
Are there any guardrails that you would apply to this? Like, And thinking back on, those who maybe try to start out either too hot and heavy and overwhelm themselves with maybe too many appointments, or how to be a little bit more strategic with how to select partners when you go to execute the blueprint.
I think you can certainly be a little bit too broad. You
Okay.
can't be everybody to everyone. And if you try to be everything to everyone, I'm thinking just the loan officer trying to go after the realtor, and you basically say, send me your turndowns, send me your trash. You're going to have a heck of a time really trying to move the needle with them, because you're always going to be their trash person, and it's just going to make your life harder. It's going to be more complex. You're going to spend more time per file. You're not going to do the volume or the type of business you want. So yeah, I think you've got to narrow it in to go from a shotgun to a sniper to define exactly what it is, and then maybe you broaden out a little bit from there, but at least start with something. Know what direction you're heading toward.
Yeah, I think that's important. Dave, what have you seen, right? I mean, you've done not only our 10 years of Friday Mastermind, but you've done, I don't know how many years, 15 years, maybe tell us on the Tuesday 10X Mastermind, which I know you guys are also changing up as we go forward.
Yeah, no, for over 15 years, every Tuesday, 9 o'clock, I interview someone amazing. Most of the time, 80% of the time, it's a top producer like Matt. And it's just me one-on-one with them, unpacking their playbook. Matt, I would love to hear you just describe, your blueprint, like your avatar, and kind of just let's know the Matt Adler blueprint, at a high level.
Absolutely. Yeah. My core client is typically a doctor, a first-time home buyer, or somebody who's building or renovating a home. Those are my core clients. My core referral partners are typically the people who are going to support that. So financial advisors, especially ones who focus on student loans, realtors who dabble in new construction, who work the first-time home buyer, down payment assistance circuit, certainly builders, definitely builders, lot and sub builders or custom builders, top to bottom.
So I want to call that out just because it's focused, but it's diverse. I would still recommend that you figure out how to focus around your local market. And like when I interviewed Sean Herrero, I mean, he did this around like, hey, who have been my favorite customers and who have been some of my least favorite customers? And he found some commonalities in least favorite. He found some commonalities in his favorites. And then he built avatars around that. But it's pretty rare that I interview someone that's just top 1% or even top 10% that doesn't have a pretty, well documented, well thought out avatar that they're focusing on, or a couple different avatars.
Yeah, I love that when Matt said, don't be the trash collector, right? Because I've known loan officers who did that and then they realize, oh my gosh, I'm totally only getting the trash. And so it's that whole idea of focus on what you want to get. I mean, Matt used a really powerful word, vision, right? You have to have a vision for what that is and get there. And then, because in the end, what you don't want to do is spray all sorts of different stuff and then go viral for the wrong thing.
Well, and I love that he also added, and you look at this every day. Because I think what we can do is we maybe set up the blueprint or the vision, even if it's at the start of a new year, and then we kind of drift, and then we just keep drifting and drifting, and we don't even realize like how far we've drifted away because it's not front and center. So, play number one, build your business blueprint, get really clear on who you are, how you want to be positioned in the market, and then execute each day on that blueprint before noon.
Yeah, there we go. I'm working on the rebrand with Deborah's help, but historically, I didn't do it last year. It's one of the first years I haven't done it, but historically, every year I kick off the year with a 90-day program to really help people launch, and it's really kind of doing what we talked about, putting on your beginner hat and going. And we actually spend time working on the avatars and that kind of stuff. So I'm going to do a 90-day program. It's the least cost coaching program out there. It's going to be just a 90-day burn where no, I'm not going to use that word. It's going to be a 90-day sprint. We're going to have fun together for 90 days. And so just be on the lookout for that. But it's probably the one thing that I have the most fun doing because it's really me taking the playbook of really what took me from a newbie who knew nothing to, closing over 550 loans, over 100 million, and then figuring out how to get there once I got stuck. So it'll be a lot of fun. I'll be rolling up my sleeves alongside of those of you who choose to jump in, but be on the lookout for that. So, all right, Matt, let's jump in. Unless you want to say anything else about number one, let's go to number two.
Number two, practice more than you play.
Mm.
And again, I'm going to go back to my musician roots. We were in the practice room 3-4 hours a day, building up for a concert that's in college. It was once every month or so. In the professional sports, they're practicing every single day or most days for one game, 2-3 hours a week. But as loan officers, I don't think we really have that mentality, but we really should. You shouldn't, it's a Phil Jones thing. The worst time to think about what you're going to say is the moment you're saying it. I'm saying this to the coaches on that part, but it's absolutely true. Is you've got to run through your scripts and you've got to know what you're going to say before you say it. And you've got to research and figure out objections. And we've got so many tools right now to be able to do that. To be able, you can go through AI and you can have AI assume a personality, or assume a realtor, or assume a builder, assume a type of client, and mock through conversations and objections. So definitely figure out what you're going to do to practice more than you can play. And it's not just scripts. It could also be mocking through loan scenarios or figuring out pricing, so that the moment you're called to perform, you don't flub it and you excel.
So
I love
things
that.
like if the appraisal comes in low.
Credit, you pull a credit report, credit is not where it needs to be. And now you're turning into a credit advisor. We've all been there. You've got to coach these people. Or, the variable income borrower who needs to understand that working 39.99 hours instead of 40 hours is going to jeopardize their ability to buy. Realtors saying, I already have a lender. Builders saying the same thing. Come up with the answer so that you're not just stopped in the moment. Don't take no for an answer.
Yeah, Dave, this reminds me of when you first interviewed Sean Benosian and he told you about his team's training. Remind me what that looks like.
Yeah, daily training. The number one loan officer, which means the busiest loan officer, or I should say the most potentially busiest loan officer, is actually doing sales training every single day, or I think at least 4 days a week. So noted that practice matters. And then one of the strategies that's come up in a lot of my interviews lately is one of the best practices loan officers have is they're doing a lot of meetings on Zoom and they're recording it, and there's a transcript, and they're creating a version of that transcript. It's like meeting notes for the consumer. So it's like the consumer's like, wow, this guy's really on it. He's paying attention. He's got these organized notes of what was covered. And then you can also take those AI notes. And I do this sometimes, for my sales call. I'm a big fan of the Challenger Sales book. So I'll do a prompt, analyze this transcript of a sales conversation between me and blank. My goal was X. I love the philosophies and tactics in the Challenger sale. So if you could audit, as a sales coach, audit this conversation, tell me, what you thought I did well, following the principles and philosophies of Challenger sale, and give me some suggestions that I could have done better. And then boom, you've got this coach giving you this 1.5 page, just boom, feedback. And again, an example of practicing and analyzing how you're conducting yourself in the market. Matt, have you ever done anything like that, or anybody else? If you've done that, put that in chat.
Not to that level, but I'm going to. I love playing around with and finding different ways to use these Zoom transcripts or call transcripts. That's a great
Sales
idea.
coaching, if you do it, let me know what you do. And I like Challenger Sales, my favorite, but if you have another sales book, I always think it's nice to give AI some direction. But even if you don't give it a book, it will shock you at what a great job it does. Of one last idea, because I think I don't know if we already talked about it, but like starting over is you could call customers. Like if you have never had a rep versus own conversation with someone, there's a way that you can practice on your clients. Any other creative ways that you're doing practice? Matt, anything else that you're doing?
Yeah, with other loan officers, role playing. Find an accountability partner within your organization, role play with them. You both can help. And that way you've got that accountability to make sure that it gets done. Put it on your schedule, put all this stuff on your schedule, time block it and do it. Put in the reps.
Well, it's funny because I was going to ask you. I mean, I think that there's a lot of people who are listening to this who are like, well, I couldn't imagine practicing every day. Like, I'm so busy. And then I'm thinking to myself, you're the guy that closed 48 loans. I mean, think about that, everyone. I mean, I don't mean to say it in this way, but some of the people that are listening to this didn't do 48 loans last year and you did it last month. And so I want you guys to think about the fact that you've got somebody here who's actually playing at a super high level, right? We're talking it's Masters Week. That's kind of our theme, right? That's the best of the best out there golfing. You're the best of the best in loans, and you're making time to do this. So you just said it, what I always say, what gets scheduled gets done. I mean, that's one of my primary pillars of teaching Win by Noon. Is that for you? Is it that easy that you just schedule and it gets done? Or how would you coach people who are listening to this who are like, yeah, that's great for Matt, but I can't do that?
No, that's how it works for me. If it's not on my calendar, I know that I'm going to put it off. It's too easy. There's too many other distractions, too many other calls and this and that. So I have to make sure it's in my calendar.
What happens if it's in your calendar and you get stuck on a client call that runs longer than you thought? Like, what do you just punt it and say, oh, well, I'll do it a different day? Or do you say, okay, gosh, no, I'll just get it done right when I get off this call? How do you approach that? Because that's, I think, also what happens to the people who do their best to get it on their calendar.
No, it absolutely does. I think it really just depends. If I can do it in a compressed time, fine. There will be days where it just doesn't fit in today because I've got another thing scheduled that I have to do, a client meeting or closing an application or whatever the case might be. But you just can't let yourself do that every single day. You have to have a little bit of self-control.
I love that. All right, Deborah, any other questions for Matt on number 2 before we kick him to number 3?
I have one more. Anything that you do to help for like loan strategy? And let me say, because, even when you're putting together a TCA for the first time, or you're looking at someone's profile, what did you do to try to find the areas where like you could refinance the car out of this person's name and put it in just the spouse, or just the little things of, should you put 10% down? And what happens if you do a buy down strategy? Like, how do you get those reps in to be able to get quicker so that you could do 48 closings, which, if my math is right, that's like 2 closings a day. Lord knows how many apps. Let's say at least 180 apps in 22 business days. Like, that's pretty incredible. And to get there, it gets easier the more muscle memory that you have. So was there anything else you did to learn the financial strategy component?
I think it was a lot of working with other loan officers, which in this, post-COVID world where we're not all blessed to have other loan officers around, and looking at their files and talking about it. Talking about, here's what I'm running into. You running into any problems in collaborating. There's a lot to be said about collaborating with other people, about what problems are you running into? Where are you stuck? How can I help? I'm stuck on this. So I think it's doing that. And also, it's never a bad idea to go back and look at old files, postmortem type of thing. Things went well, things didn't go so great. And maybe you can learn from that. Maybe you could have realized, oh man, why didn't I see this? I could have done that. And then for next time, because I think that's one of the best ways to learn is by screwing up. I know it is for me.
Mm-hmm. Love that.
Yep.
Thank you.
So true. All right, so let's go number 3.
Number 3, make your phone calls. Make them every day. So this stat I was kind of interested to see. Something like 49% of Gen Z millennials experience phone anxiety. And then I was wondering, well, how many loan officers are Gen Z or millennial? It's like 36%. So if you just make your phone calls every single day, you're doing better than statistically 36% of your competition. And those phone calls are, call to realtors call to builders, realtors you don't know, past clients, pre-approved clients. If you can just set aside 30 minutes, 45 minutes, something like that in the morning before you even open up your email, and then that takes your day away, you're going to be so much more successful than 70%, 36% of people.
Yeah, but you just scared everyone. So you will actually make some phone calls before you open your email?
Yeah, because it's the biggest distraction. I tell everybody I'm a professional emailer for a living. So if I can at least put it away for a little bit I know I'll get some other things that I don't necessarily want to get done. And I hate to do some of those phone calls, but you got to do them.
All right, Dave, I don't want to, say you've been doing this longer than the rest of us, but I know when I first got in the mortgage business 25 years ago, email was kind of a new thing. And so what were I mean, you've always had to be, when you were a top producing loan officer, Dave, a call first guy. What, how do you help relate that to the millennials and in Gen Z who don't have any clue what that was like pre-email?
Well, first of all, I don't know that we are in a call first world now. I mean, I know a lot of times when I want to talk to someone, I'll text them and say, "Hey, you got a minute?" And there's not a lot of people that I just call first. Now, here's what I'll say. I don't think there's any one rule, whether you call first, you text first, you email first, other than I will say that if you don't have someone that you either do business with or someone that you want to do business with, if you don't have their mobile number, you're not in the game. Like it is a race to have a name, have a phone number, have a mobile number, have an email address, and know what their preference is. You can find that out in the first call with a new prospect, have a conversation. Hey, do you prefer that I email, call, or text you? Like preference management matters more than ever. And I will say one more thing on this note. From the interviews I've done over 15 years and the experience I had as both a salesperson and as a manager of salespeople, the one thing they all have in common is they get their prospecting done by noon. There are exceptions where there's like, oh, I like to call it 1 or 2. And that's fine. If you do it consistently and you're winning, achieving your personal goals, whatever they are, good to go. But most of the time I find people that have elite goals and they're hitting their goals, their prospecting is done by noon. Matt, what's your kind of personal standard on that?
I want to try to get everything I don't want to have done by noon. Doesn't matter, all that stuff. Get the bad news out by noon, the good news out, sure. But yeah, phone calls, the texts, so that the rest of the day can unfold as it usually does, slowly and quickly, then winding into chaos.
Hey, Todd, I know you're going to be launching a new workshop that, whether someone's new in the business, that this is your fast track to winning, whether someone just wants to go to the next level. I know it's going to be a 90-day, it's going to be a 90-day program.
Be 90-day program. Just like knock it out.
What's the standard that you try to drive when you're talking to people around this topic?
I mean, I think the standard has always been that kind of the old eat the frog thing, right? Like Matt just said, the bad news, right? When I convinced my wife not to go back and practice law for 90 days to help me in the mortgage business, she literally put a Post-it note of the clients and realtors I had to call. And it was on my desk after I drove the kids to school. I met my wife at the office because we were at a company that we couldn't get loans done in the time that was needed for every contract we got. It was embarrassing. And that was the first calls I had to make every day. It just felt so good to knock it out and then get it done. And then, what I try to talk to are the people who think they're an afternoon or evening person, that I'm not a morning person. The bottom line is that whatever that time is for you where you're up and running, because the other stuff will still be there in the afternoon. And so, yeah, what I love about, the 90-day program that I'll be giving you guys more detail on next week is that we dig in on all this stuff, kind of some of the words that you used earlier, Matt: collaboration, accountability, blueprint. It's really all of those things. It's really how to build. The old name of it is Operating System 2.0, because I said you have to create a new operating system for yourself. And the most interesting thing about it is that, I divide the pricing up for people who are less than a year in the business, super cheap, a little bit cheaper if you've been in the business for 5 years and you're not doing for more than a year, I'm sorry, and you're not doing more than 5 loans a month. And then for those people who are doing more than 5 loans a month, and it's a pretty even split between that. I get a lot of $50 million producers that'll join the group to hear the scripts and the things that, built up my success. And, it always does come back to that one variable that, spoiler alert, the thing that grew my business 45% in 1 year in a flat market was winning by noon. And so I think in the end, we all know what we need to do. It's just we get in our own way. And that's why when Matt said the thing that I always said that freaked people out is not checking my email, not being in there first thing in the morning, because that's someone else's to-do list for you, not your own. And then I loved your sharpening, Dave, around the text first thing. I'll throw a link in the chat. Tim Ferriss, you all know I'm a big Tim Ferriss fan. I was listening while I was sitting at the hospital last night. He's interviewing a gal named Michelle Khari. She's got a a YouTube channel called Challenge Accepted. She's the one who did the reenactment of hanging onto an airplane that was taking off that Tom Cruise did in one of his last movies. And what was really interesting in there, the part I'm at right now, and apparently if you go to the tim.blog and look at the show notes, they're going to have their cold email opens. They spent some time talking about how they got some of their biggest relationships from a cold email they sent and the strategies they use for it. And so I was thinking about that, Dave, as you were talking about, I text people first, is that we could probably use those same things for a cold text to someone. But when they're talking about the fact that today in 2026, she is using that to get introductions to some really high level people. I think most of us would feel like we can never build a relationship that way, but they've got some strategies in there that I think we'll have to break down in a future episode here, but I would check that out. So what about you, Deborah? Oh, go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, one more little nugget, because ever since we announced this Win by Noon, I've been doing some personal auditing around just me winning by noon. And one thing that I had noticed, I was looking at my screen time, and my Instagram time was out of control. And
I thought you had limits around that, time limits.
Well, I do have limits, but I'm always giving myself more.
Oh my God, that is hilarious.
So it's like the 15-minute little warning would come up, and I like,
we need an intervention.
Give me more. Forget it for the day. Like I was.
That's hilarious.
And it was really like, one, I would be on calls like this, scrolling on Instagram, or two, I would be, whatever. So I did some research and I found this app. It's called Be Present. So I'm on my first week with the Be Present app. And one of the things that I did is I made it so that I could only do 10 Instagrams a day. And I'm a gamer, I like streaks. I like gamification. I like personal goals. So that's something I'm doing to be more present when I'm winning by noon. So be thankful for anyone who's listening to this. What's getting in the way of you getting your prospecting time? Is it a social media app? Is it email and you're using email to avoid actual text, call, email? And are you reaching out to people? So think about that. And then if anybody else experiments with the Be Present app, let me know. I have gone past my free trial, and I'm gonna stick with it. And by the way, my screen time and social media time is down 11% for the week. So
nice. Let's go.
Yeah.
Good job.
Nice. I'm going to be on the lookout. Maybe we'll get some show sponsors in the future. And so I'll look at the Be Present app as a show sponsor. If you could help me out with that. All right. Any other thoughts on that?
I need a month under my belt where I can. Right now, guys, it's a beta. It's an experiment. I'm not officially recommending it because it is an app that costs money. But I did go past free trial, and I'm paying monthly now.
Well, I think success leaves clues, right? And super achievers all are willing to jump in and do stuff. And so I love that you said, hey, I'm not a salesman on it yet because it costs money. And I do want you all to be, money conscious, right? I mean, I think that's super important. So then think through for you, how could you set up those human blinders, right? At least the iPhone, I don't know about you Android users, has the screen time, and you can certainly set the limits like Deborah was mentioning.
And it's useful. Like everybody should do that. Like, go into your settings and look for screen time, go into thing, click on screen time, and you can set up limits, and it's free, comes with your phone, highly valuable. I mean,
just make sure you don't hit ignore or give me 15 more minutes when it gives you the notification. This is why a lot of super achievers hire even Plug and Play. It's not that they couldn't necessarily do their own content and post it. It's to keep them off the apps because they know, like, that's what the apps are designed to do, is like feed the addiction. So we will go in and do engagement strategies, likes, comments, create their content, share it to stories, just to keep them away from that rabbit hole of where it can really suck your time.
And your presence. Like,
yes.
it wasn't so much the time, because I'm so scheduled and busy that, but I would find myself in meetings where I'm just like, what am I doing?
I'm the same way. We're like, go,
Yeah.
I'm just laughing. I love it. All right. So we're almost 3/4 of the way through today. I think we got to jump on to number 4, unless you have anything else you want to add, Matt, on the previous 3. You feel free to do so, and then bring us to number 4.
Now, what I want to see if that app has a family plan that includes teenagers. Yeah.
Ooh, I bet it does.
Yeah. I'm totally.
You can
on
set
that one.
screen time up for your family within your Apple phone, just a heads up for kids. And you can always shut it down. You can block certain apps, but you can set limits up for them.
But they can hit 1 more minute over and over and
No,
over again. No?
you can take that off.
Oh gosh, you got to show me that.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
All right, that'll be it. We'll have an episode of just for your kids. In fact, Deborah, let's just make that a note for Win Now. Let's do how to be a parent in the modern world.
Well, and also,
Win.
I mean, this would not be a bad topic for a sales meeting to demo this feature and just help people know how to, I mean, like learning how to manage your attention in a modern world is an important skill. And like he's now 24, my 24-year-old son, people always said how that age group, they're just ruined because they grew up on devices. Well, Jack actually has this, it's called like a lockbox, something that he keeps in his house that he puts his phone on and it like freezes things out. Like he self-managed himself. And I would tell you that I'm more distracted by my phone and social media than my 27-year-old and my 24-year-old, because they know how important it is and they've trained themselves and disciplined themselves to do it. So managing attention is an important skill.
Yeah, that is huge, and I'm not surprised, Dave, that that's one of Jack's superpowers, right? I mean, he's a disciplined kid, and I think that's why I love the fact that this theme was around the Masters, right? Even though Matt, you're not a golfer, right? You've had that discipline in your musical world, right? And so I find that people who are super achievers tend to have had something that they were super disciplined at outside of business when they were growing up that they've brought over into this world. So, all right, take us to number 4, Matt.
Number 4, know your numbers and know them cold. So in sports, they got stats. We can look up ESPN and find stats for almost any sort of sport and any player. So we've got stats on that. And technically you can go to like MMI or Redder and you can look up your own stats or the stats of the agents or people you're targeting. But how well do you know your own stats? Like what's your average loan size? Where did your business come from? What's your pull-through rate? Like me, I've got my little pad here and I track everything, the number of calls and who I talk to and applications and closings and past clients and database conversations and partner. So I track all of it and keep it, accountable with myself and go over it with my coach. And that way I can see how I performed last month. I can modify to see how I can improve next month. And I can know what I can focus on.
Well, you just showed me that I need to send you a copy of the Win by Noon planner, so you've got something a little cooler to be tracking that in. Although I do know the tool that you're using, which I certainly endorse and use as well. But I'll send you a planner because I'd love your feedback on it since it's LO specific.
Absolutely.
But I do think that's it, right? I mean, Deborah, you and I talk about that all the time. I mean, so many LOs don't know their numbers, which I think is just a basic. And I think it's not just the results side. I'm preaching the other side, the what happens first, the lead indicators, right? What are those activities that are getting to those results? And I know, and that's why I love the fact that we're trying to push this back, productivity focus, Dave. I love that you brought that as an idea, and Deborah's been trying to kick me in the ass for close to a year to really be refocused on Win by Noon and the fact that people just need those basics.
Yeah, and I want to pile on. We had Hunter on this mastermind a few weeks ago, and every Tuesday at 8:00, I publish a newsletter. It's Modern Mortgage Leadership, and look what Hunter's number one principle was: know your numbers. And Hunter's killing it. Like he is another baller that is winning big. But his number one was know your numbers. Number 2 was trust is never neutral. You're either going forward or going backwards, but like trust is everything. And impact before income. So give that a scan, guys. I put a link off to the right in chat, and I would say that if most of the elite people that Todd and I have featured, that would be one of the keys to their playbooks. And I would just push everybody self-assess on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being I crush it with knowing my numbers. Where do you rate? And getting to a 5 is a superpower.
All right,
You're not going to know your numbers if you don't track them.
Well, that's it. You got to have something. It could just be a piece of paper to people. Like, I'm not so stuck that it has to be a planner. Mine was originally just a notebook, and I literally just taped a a piece of paper that I photocopied and stuck in there. It had my calendar in it. It had these things, right? How many people did I call? How many people did I talk to? How many people did I meet with? And then all the other result side of it, right? Leads, applications, pre-approvals, and closed. And so you don't have to overthink it, right? I mean, the bottom line is though, is that if you truly are going to be a professional, right? It's this whole idea of amateur versus pro. And Matt just nailed it. If you don't know your numbers, right? The best of the best in sports know their numbers for a reason. And you've got to know that too. And so I think that's been really the push there. And, Deborah, the teacher, right? The teacher and Deborah always comes out when we talk about this.
Well, I think it's really important to track the activities. That's why I guess I just need to kick you harder, Todd, because I think we can get so attached to the end results and we almost will beat ourselves up or we'll get really high or low based off those results. And at the end of the day, it's the activities to me that matter most. And that's where you can then just make, sometimes small little tweaks and those small tweaks make big leaps for you. And you can commit to the controllables. What you can't always control is the outcome. So that's why things like how many phone calls did I attempt to make to my database? Not everyone's going to answer. Maybe you didn't do the text first method, but same thing with when you're prospecting. How many DMs, how many likes did you give out? Like those are the things you can control. And it helps you stay the course so that just if the results take a little bit longer, and I do feel like these last couple of years we've been working harder than we've ever worked, and the results feel like they're slower to show up sometimes. The only way I know you can stay committed is, again, going back to like the master standards, is what do the elite do as non-negotiables every day before noon to make sure that they have a business in 90 days. So I can't preach on this enough, largely just to show you your gaps and where do I believe in everything can always be improved. So Dave, that's part of my code is where could something be improved? Because at the end of the day, I'm always wrong. And there's a chance that whatever I'm reading or the story I've created, it may not be real. So when you adopt the mindset of everything can be improved, well, then you have to know your numbers to know what to improve.
All right, so here we are. We are in the final quarter, rolling towards the summit of this first Win by Noon Friday morning mastermind. Let's hit number 5, and then let's do a recap afterwards.
Okay, number 5, be the connector, not just the closer. So this is about networking. And this is about bringing the people together who you think will have a good relationship together. So making introductions between a realtor and a CPA or a builder could change their lives. Certainly more rewarding for you, but I don't know if you've read that book, More Giftology or Giftology, either of those, which a realtor just gave me and was fantastic. He gifted it to me, and it's all about, giving and just giving people, and you will eventually probably get something back, but it's tremendously rewarding when you make a connection that creates something bigger.
Yeah, you know what? I think that's such an important skill, right? It kind of reminds me of Michael Mayer's 7 Levels of Communication, where he kind of talks about, bringing people together and being that connector and, creating a process around that. So for you, what does that process look like? I mean, how do you embody that number 5?
I kind of feel like a matchmaker. It just, you get a sense of who might mesh well together. I've got a financial planner who his whole thing is he works with doctors, and that's his big thing. And I've got a realtor who's really big in the doctor space. And like I said earlier, I do a lot of doctor loans. And I was able to bring them together to the point where they regularly 2-3 times a year do a giant seminar with all these residents who are about to graduate, who have all these concerns about, financially, what am I going to do next year? What do I have to worry about on student loans, and certainly housing and everything else. And they've both become wildly successful using each other's skills, their network as well. And what's been great is it's certainly come back to me in terms of buyers. That's been a nice little thing, but they've grown exponentially because of it.
Yeah, I think that's great. I still go back to the start when you said, right, I work with doctors and first-time home buyers, right? People are thinking those are 2 opposite ends of the spectrum. And then you've got the focus on building and renovation. And so I want the rest of you to be
Mhm.
thinking about this, right? How can you be a matchmaker with what is important to you? And, I think as we kind of head into this next week where, Dave, Deborah and I, Matt, we're all going to be at MBA advocacy on behalf of all of you in the industry. And, I literally saw my agenda. I'm meeting with senators, I'm meeting with representatives, which I guess those are Congress folks. And I'm thankful that Kristen is also in California. So she'll be sitting in all my meetings where it's 5 of us meeting with these important politicians and really be thinking about what are you going to focus on. And I think that one of the ones I would encourage you to think about is first time home buyers. I would encourage you to think about connecting with First Home IQ, where we really help you look like you're well, not look like, be the expert that you need to be for first home buyers by providing you education and the other things that are required presentations for you to be that expert. Any thoughts on that, Dave?
Again, so much of this call is a deja vu, Deborah, of the conversation we had with Hunter. And I'm going to pull it up again because it just makes so much sense. Is what was Hunter's strategy number 5? He called it the Ritz-Carlton gifting philosophy. And he made a point like something went sideways on a file. The client got frustrated, pizza night at their house. So, just to echo that. And then what Deborah said, Hunter's strategy number 5, Deborah Bird actually weighed this in, do a digital audit on yourself, so anyways. And by the way, if you do not follow Matt on social media, highly recommend you do. He's very strategic and thoughtful about how he shows up. I know he does a great job because look at his results. Like, you can look at his results and you can say, that's whatever he's doing it right. Because he's winning in a massive way.
Thanks.
Yeah, I love that. We'll make sure we have all of Matt's socials in the show notes when we get this posted over to YouTube and also when we get it out on the podcast platform. So we're getting to the end of game time, Matt. So we are going to close it out. Dave, you'll have to coach me through this. I've always done the win by noon close. Do we want to have you or Deborah do the final close? Like, how should we order this? We definitely have to have Matt go first.
I definitely think no one does the win by noon close as good as you. And the only person that comes close to doing it as well as you is Deborah. So I definitely think it's you and or Deborah are doing the win by noon close because
I see what you did there, Dave. You did the not it. I'm leveraging out the other people.
Yeah. No, I mean that
leverage
in
people.
honesty though. I mean, Todd is such a, like, his superpower is being the guide and then coaching and helping people turn ideas into action. And I really don't know anyone that does it better than he does. I think when we get to this, last 5 minutes, we want to make sure, Matt, if there's something that you came here that you think is important to get shared, could be that number 6 idea, it could be something else, but just make sure that anything you came prepared to share, what do you got? What haven't you shared so far?
I think it is so easy for any of us on this call to just get totally enveloped in our day. We got 1,000 different things pulling us in 1,000 different directions. And it's so easy to let any one of those take control of our lives. Everything that I laid out is important to me. It might not necessarily be the stuff that's important to you, but I think it's very important to just take some time, evaluate your business, find some key things, make sure you do them day after day because repetition makes for success. And don't be afraid to screw up. I see loan officers get worried that they're not going to do something right, and then they just don't do it. And that not doing it could be causing them not to get to that next level. So my challenge to everybody is take one of these ideas, take a different idea, but take something, try it out for a month. Don't be afraid to fail and kick some butt with it.
One more thing, if you could share, is what are you going to talk about at First Home IQ? Like, what is your going to be next Thursday?
I am going to be talking about something I think is really important, especially with the trigger lead ban that happened last month. And it's going to be owning the relationship first before anybody else does.
Owning the relationship first.
Mm-hmm.
Can't wait to see that live next week.
Love it.
And,
Love it. All right, Dave. So what's
don't
your
have your
60 second?
ticket, you can still get one.
So here was my thought there. So Matt gave, I think it's kind of like the thing we're going to ask guests at the end is kind of what's the first domino that you want people to take action on? And so Matt just said, right, try one of these things and try it for 30 days. All right, Dave. So what's your action item that you want to give the crew 60 seconds before we take off today?
Is that me?
That's you. You're next.
Oh, I'm gonna just lean into being present because that is something that I am currently personally working on. And not only in making sure that I am winning by noon on my business development things, I'm doing things at a higher quality, but when everything I'm doing, how can I be more present? And you've already heard the Be Present app is one tool that I'm applying. There are other tools that I've applied, like I've created a couple of chat threads where I'm talking to chat every day around here's the most important things I accomplished today. This is what I want to do tomorrow. And I pinned it. And so I'm using AI in some new ways consistently, but be present. And I think that's a different game for everybody.
Love it. D-Bird.
What was the question exactly? Sorry.
What's the first domino? What do you want people to do to take action, or what are your final thoughts of today?
To bookmark these calls every Friday as a way to me, any pro has accountability or coach. And so if this needs to be your accountability group or your weekly just, commitment to winning bigger, then be sure to time block and have this as a reoccurring meeting with yourself so that you're getting goodness poured back into you and also holding yourself accountable.
Yeah, I love it. Well, so I'm going to, my word I'm going to wrap with is gratitude. I'm super grateful, first off to all of you who watch and listen, obviously to you, Dave, for inviting me to be your right hand 10 years ago to jump in and do this. Deborah, for you for jumping in. Matt, for you for being here today. And I do think it's all about taking action. And I do think it's going to be the theme, one of the themes I'll take going forward. And maybe I'll come up with a different metaphor for it. But is this first domino? Like, what is it that you're going to do as you leave here that's going to be the first domino that knocks over? And I think it's typically for me, it's going to be take a look at your notes, right? So I'm going to go through Matt's 5 winning plays for LOs, and then think about what is that one thing that you can do right after this. Like take a couple of minutes before you jump in your email, before you check your text, and figure out what is it that I'm going to do if I'm truly going to be the best me, right? Talk about your blueprint for the next year that Matt talked about. What is it that I need to accomplish? And what I really hope is that you're all going to double down. Deborah said it before that Q2 is kind of the most important quarter of the year that we need to really put our foot to the gas. It doesn't matter what happened in January. Hopefully it was great and you've got momentum. But if you don't have momentum, you got to figure out how to make sure that you gain momentum to finish out your year. And our goal of this Friday morning mastermind is to get you on here, get your friends on here, be active in the chat, and ultimately figure out what is that, I'm going to use Deborah's terminology, that you need. I've got friends like Dave and Deborah who give me kicks in the ass all the time, and we want to give you that kick because the bottom line is this is going to be an amazing year if you choose to make it that way, if you're intentional around it. But I think the next big opportunity will be next Thursday, Modern Mortgage Summit. We hope to see you all there live. It's going to be an amazing day. And then we'll see you here next Friday live as we go through and we recap that together, Dave, Deborah, and I. And again, thank you all for being here. Thanks, my friends. Look forward to seeing you soon and go out and win by noon. Thanks, everyone.
Take care.